All right. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. It is so good to be back. I think we're up. I think we're running well. Let me just check a few things really quick. I want to make sure the stream is up and running well. But it is so good to see everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I'm just checking something really quick. Hello, everyone. Hello. All right. I think we're good. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all again. So yeah, I just got back from vacation. I've been away for a little while, so it's so good to be back. So good to see everyone again. Awesome being back. I had a good vacation. It was very much needed, I can tell you that, but it's nice to get that done and out of the way, and I'm super pumped to be back in the live chat. Very excited for this one. So we haven't had one in a while. Really, there hasn't been one since before the PlayStation 5 showcase, since before the May NPD data came out. So there's a lot of topics we can talk about. There's a whole bunch. So really quick, for anyone that's never been part of the live chat before, the way this show works, you just drop your questions, drop your comments over to the side, and I will get to as many as I can. It's primarily going to be focused on gaming, of course, but we can talk about whatever. I try to hit as many questions as possible. So some of the main topics we can go over today, the PlayStation 5 showcase looks like it was a gigantic success for Sony. Did huge numbers of views on YouTube, crazy metrics all over the place. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of questions and comments about that we can talk about. So PlayStation 5 showcase, May NPD data came out. It was a great month for the industry. Again, basically what we've been seeing all year long for the US. Sales have been pretty crazy across the board, really. And I'll tell you what, May was the first month in a while where I was pretty off on my predictions in terms of overall volume, particularly on the Switch. The Switch did amazing. I was expecting it to do well, but it did next level well. It did absolutely incredible numbers. So whole bunch of sales stuff we can talk about with that. If anyone wants to talk about EA Play or any of the comments or anything with that, we can get to that as well. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be a ton about The Last of Us Part 2, considering that game just came out, in the last couple days. Seems to be blowing up on social media and things like that. So if anyone wants to talk about any kind of sales potential, anything around The Last of Us Part 2, we can get to that as well. So just make sure you're dropping those comments and questions on the side. First, I'm going to give you, before I dive into your comments, a couple quick thoughts on the PlayStation 5 showcase. It looks like it just did enormous numbers for Sony. One thing that I noted on Twitter was that, I've been compiling as much YouTube metrics as I can. You all know that I tend to do that sort of thing. I like to watch that. And it looks like, all the trailers and the show itself combined did about 100 million views in a week. Those are some crazy numbers. Basically, in 7 days, 100 million views on PlayStation 5 content on just YouTube, not counting things like Twitter or anything like that. That's enormous. That's absolutely enormous metrics. I thought the show itself overall was really well set up. I thought that they did a great job. It clearly spent a lot of money on, graphics and transitions and things like that. They had a good showcase variety. You saw the big AAA first party stuff from companies like Guerrilla and Insomniac that you want to see, but also a lot of smaller indie titles kind of stole the show in some ways too. Games like Kena Bridge of Spirits, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Stray, and Little Devil Inside, those all pretty much blew up on YouTube as well. Each one of those indie games doing over 1 million views. So yeah, it was a good showcase overall. A lot of variety, a lot of different kinds of content. Sometimes in the past, Sony's been criticized a bit, for as good as their games are. In the PlayStation 4 generation, you saw a lot of their games follow a similar template in terms of, they're very different games, but there was some similarity in that they're these third-person, very story-focused, oftentimes kind of over the shoulder. If you look at like Uncharted and God of War and, The Last of Us, there has been some, and I'm just saying some, criticism that maybe Sony plays things a little familiar with their first party. But I thought they did a good job here of showcasing quite a few different kinds of games. You know, you still had your big story focused stuff like Spider-Man and Horizon, your big open world games, but then you also saw stuff like Ratchet and Clank, you know, which is a platform slash shooter, you know, quite a bit different than stuff like Days Gone and God of War. And then you also saw stuff like, you know, the Little Big Planet game. So I thought they had a nice variety. So I really appreciated that from Sony. But overall, it seems like it was a great show. So let's start diving into your comments and questions now. Just wanted to kind of give you my thoughts off of the top of the show. Tripix. Hi, Benji. When will we get a price reveal for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? Also, how are you and the family doing? Me and the family are doing great. Like I said, the vacation was much needed. Very glad that we got to go out and do that. We were on a private beach, so we weren't, around a whole bunch of people with all the pandemic stuff still blowing up. Luckily, we were on a private beach. Everything was pretty spread out. There wasn't people right on top of you. We played it just like a chill week, rented an Airbnb, and it was pretty awesome. Very much needed. In terms of the price reveal, you know, I wasn't surprised at all that the price was not here for the PlayStation 5 event. That was one of the things I said in my expectations going in. I said I thought we would see the box, which we did, which I'm sure we can talk about that too, everyone's feelings on that. But I had a feeling we would see the console, and we did. But the price, I just didn't think we would yet. Sony and Microsoft are so, you know, head-to-head being secretive on price. I just really didn't think Sony would do the price here. When will we get one? You know, it's a great question because they can't, you know, kind of hide this forever, right? Eventually, Microsoft or Sony, someone has to announce price. We're already in June, and we're actually in late June, right? We're in June 20th right now. These consoles are going to launch more than likely in November. So you're looking at a pretty short window. At some point, they are going to have to announce price because people are going to need to know how much they need to have saved up. You know, what kind of game budget they're going to have, because when you buy a console, you're going to need games with it too. So eventually price is going to have to come out. When we get that, my guess the last time someone asked me on this was, I think I said I was kind of thinking August, and I'm still standing by that. I know that sounds kind of late, but I think Sony and Microsoft both just don't want to say the price. They want to wait. I think both are very concerned about being undercut by the other one. My guess is that both companies are targeting $500 for the PlayStation 5, you know, the main console, not the disc drive-less one, the digital one, just the regular PlayStation 5, Series X. My guess here is that both of those are targeting $500, but I think there is a very real concern at Sony and Microsoft that, hey, what if we announce 500 and suddenly the competition comes out and undercuts us to 450 or 399 even, if they can, you know, are willing to take a loss like that. So I just think both are concerned. August is going to be my guess, Tripix. I don't think we're going to get anything before that. I would be super happy if we did. You know, that way even me, I know how much to budget and save up for this. But August is what I'm thinking. And then Tripix asking, have you played The Last of Us Part 2? What are your thoughts? I literally just started it last night, barely. I played it for maybe a total of 10, 15 minutes, so I don't really have much to comment on my thoughts on it yet. I'm going to talk about that, you know, probably next week. Probably the next live chat we are on, I can say a lot more of my thoughts because I'm going to dig into it for a long time tonight. I'm going to play hours of the game tonight. But last night, I just didn't really have much time to play it a bunch, so I just don't really have much to say as of now. Next live chat, though, I'll have a whole bunch for you. Moist and Delicious. Hey, Benji, really don't get Sony's censorship policy now since Last of Us 2 released. What are your thoughts on it? Depends on what you mean by censorship policy. I'm not sure. Moist and Delicious. If you mean like in terms of what the embargo stuff was, like what journalists and stuff were allowed to talk about. Apparently they can only talk about very, very small portions of the game. Sony really did not want them talking about very much of the game in terms of like hardcore details. A lot of the journalists were saying it was like the strictest NDAs they've almost ever had on reviews and stuff. You know, it's a bummer. I kind of see why Sony wanted to do that because The story is very intense. It's a very story-focused game. At the same time, though, preventing journalists from being able to fully talk about the experience they had does seem kind of lame. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest. So kind of two minds on it. If you mean censorship as in like content of the games, The Last of Us Part 2, for example, is unbelievably violent, and there's nudity and all sorts of stuff in it. That side of things, I don't just have a lot to comment on. I guess it's just a case-by-case basis in terms of how Sony's going to approach games. So, yeah, I don't have much to comment in terms of like the in-game censorship policy. Elias Stapleton. Hi, Benji. The Last of Us is right now the very topic in all of Twitter, YouTube, etc. 95 Metacritic, 96 OpenCritic, but user score reviews are review bombing. Even Neil Druckmann is making jokes about that. What do you think about user Metacritic scores? In my opinion, in general, user scores and Metacritic are not important because things like this. Elias, I am actually not a very big fan of user reviews. I'm going to be honest with you, for this very reason. But at the same time, in a way, they are important. Here's what I'll say. I think Metacritic isn't... I don't think Metacritic should have user scores because almost always it is used for these sorts of things, not just The Last of Us. This has happened with many games. It's happened with Nintendo exclusives. It's happened with Xbox exclusives. Review bombing is a very real phenomena on Metacritic. I just think they should take them off completely, to be honest. But I do think that they are pretty important on places like Steam, on places like the PlayStation storefront, things like this. I think you should have to buy the game in order to be able to review it, which most of these do. That kind of helps prevent some review bombing. But I think user scores are important on storefronts because that is a scenario where, yeah, you're directly buying the game. If a game's really glitchy, if the developer support is not good, people need to be able to speak their minds to warn other people about that. So I would say on storefronts, I am a fan of user scores. In terms of like Metacritic, I would just get rid of them completely. Honestly, I don't see the value at all on Metacritic for user reviews. I haven't seen the value of that for a very long time. I've been of that opinion for a very long time. It's just, it happens constantly. I think this happened with Bayonetta. It's happened with, like I said, some Xbox games. It happens all the time. People get upset and mad about something, or super hardcore fans of one console bomb it. I'm just not a fan. Just get rid of them. They don't really serve any purpose, really. Forzathon. Hi, Benji. Did you notice the tweet from CD Projekt Red about 2077 Xbox Series X and PS5 versions? Makes it sound like Xbox Series X is releasing after Cyberpunk 2077 release date, and PS5 is releasing on or before that date. I did notice that, Forzathon, and I'm surprised I haven't seen that gain more traction online, really. The wording of that tweet sure sounds like that CD Projekt Red know when they're coming out. I don't know if this was just like a mistake, from the way it's written. They didn't mean it how it sounds, but basically the way the tweet read is they said that Cyberpunk 2077 would be available at launch on PlayStation 5. Like, I believe that was the exact wording. And then they said it would be available on Series X when that console launches, which makes it sound like after. So, Forzathon, I don't know if CD Projekt Red know the date. It's entirely possible. It also could be, though, that they don't. Sometimes, third-party publishers have an idea of a time frame whenever a console is going to release, but not the exact date. So I don't know. Forzathon, I don't know for sure if they know or not, but I will say yes. The tweet very much read that way. I noticed it instantly. I was like, sure sounds like they know when these consoles are coming out, like the exact date. All right. And then Elias saying that that Elias thinks that the backlash for The Last of Us Part 2 is even bigger than Pokemon Sword and Shield. Do you think this will increase or hurt sales? I don't think that the user reviews are going to have any impact on sales in any way, shape, or form. They almost never do. I have almost never seen a case of it. There's extremely rare cases where a really negative thing can't, like in terms of online discussion, can hurt sales. And a prime example would be Star Wars Battlefront 2, but that was about game mechanics. It was about the loot boxes and things like that. In terms of like user scores, like just specifically user reviews, not controversy around a game mechanic or something like that, I've almost never seen it. For example, like you mentioned, Pokemon Sword and Shield. If you read online before that game came out, the discussion, you would think that Sword and Shield were going to be the worst Pokemon games ever. There was a lot of negativity. The whole Pokedex thing, it was blowing up. So many people upset. And guess what? It was the biggest launch for a Pokemon game by far ever. There's almost no correlation. I've almost never seen correlation between sales and user scores. So no, I don't think it'll hurt The Last of Us in any way, shape, or form. I am curious, though, actual reception, if it will affect legs. We're still so early that I think a lot of people haven't, played the game yet, or if they have played the game, they haven't beaten it yet. So we don't really have a clear idea how much, what people actually think about the game. Not the user review bombing, but the actual consumers buying it. If, for some reason, people playing the game do not like it, that could affect legs if it gets bad word of mouth. That is possible, but we're still way too early to know. Ryan Tolu, talking about USA NPD, do you think Switch can sell close to DS peak this December, 3 million? Also, who do you expect to win November? So Ryan, May was amazing. Switch did way better than I predicted it. This has actually been the first time I've been like really off on a console in a while. I haven't been, I predicted in May NPD that I thought Switch was going to break the current gen record, but I thought it wouldn't be like a crazy number. I thought, yeah, it's going to break the record for the current gen because it still tracked really well from what I was seeing, but it wasn't going to be like this explosively huge number. Turns out that it was actually massive again. Now, it wasn't as big as what March and April were. So I was kind of right in that it was decreasing, right? We didn't see the insane numbers exactly that we saw March and April. It did slow down in May, but it was still a huge month. It was still massive. It didn't just break the current gen record. It completely crushed the current gen record. So Ryan, Switch is just seemingly unstoppable this year. Can it get close to 3 million in December? Oh man, I would say with a price drop, yes. Without a price drop, might be tough just because we don't really know what its holiday lineup is going to be for games. We don't really know yet what Nintendo's going to be launching. They like to have a big December game. They like to have a big November game. We don't really know what that game's going to be yet. Ryan, if they have, like, for example, let's say somehow the Breath of the Wild sequel sneaks in at the end of the year. I don't think so. I think that's going to be next year. But let's say they have something crazy huge like that and maybe a $50 price cut. It could happen. Not going to say it's impossible with how explosively huge Switch has been all year. There's also a question, though, of are these early sales going to actually hurt the end of the year sales? Because Switch is selling so much early in the year, does that mean that demand will be lower at the end of the year? It's tough to say. It's hard to know. But Ryan, I will say 3 million is not impossible by any means. Switch has already done a 2 million month. We've already seen the Switch do 2 million units in a month last year. Could happen. You never know. 3 million is not impossible. Yeah, I already answered. I haven't played enough of The Last of Us to give you my opinions yet. I'll let you know next week. Next live chat, I'll go over all that. Sorry, we just have some discussion here. I'm trying to get to the next questions. Tripic saying, calling out, don't forget to leave a like. I appreciate it. Yep, always down with likes. If anyone likes doing these live chats, make sure you hit that like button. Definitely helps the channel out. Sorry, there's a lot of discussion in the chat, so it's hard for me to find the questions at the moment. Here we go. The Bigelow 25. Benji-Sales, how do you feel about Xbox's July event? Great question, Bigelow. So here's my kind of thoughts on that. Let's talk about the PlayStation 5 showcase and exactly how I think that is going to affect what Microsoft does in July. So Sony went really big. They went really big in this show. There was third-party games there, big third-party games like Resident Evil 8, for example. You saw a Square Enix game, a new exclusive from them that's, probably timed exclusive, and it's going to be going to PC and probably eventually Xbox, but at least console exclusive at launch. So you had big third-party games. You had a really good first-party showing, I think. You had Spider-Man Miles Morales, which looks awesome. It's going to be huge. You had Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which was probably my game of the show here. I thought that game looked just phenomenal, and I love the original. You had Ratchet and Clank looking excellent, showing what the SSD can do. You saw Demon's Souls remake from Bluepoint, which Japan Studios helping with. It was big. It was a really big show, really impressive show. So, there was a lot. And like I said, there was a lot of indie titles as well. So what this tells me, Microsoft need to also go very big in July. And from what I'm hearing through the grapevine, I'm not Mr. Insider who's always out here talking about rumors. Occasionally I comment on rumors, but I'm not like a nonstop rumor mill guy. There's other people that are a lot better at that than me. I focus more on trying to find out as much insider stuff about sales than I do about, unannounced games, for example. There's some people, that's all they do. They're always trying to find out about unannounced games. I only really find out if a developer, for example, or somebody wants to reach out to me and we talk a little bit. But all I will say is the little bits that I have heard is that it sounds like Xbox has a lot of projects going on in their first-party teams. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot, and some of very, very big scale. So they have a lot in the pipeline. My only question is, some of these projects are pretty far off, so I just wonder how much Microsoft drops at once, in this show. I think they need to go big. I thought Sony's showcase was very good, but I didn't think Sony's showcase was so strong that Microsoft couldn't respond. For example, there's always a risk whenever someone else goes first. Maybe their show is so amazing, it's tough to compete with it because somebody else has already went and you're like, man, they just showed so much. How do I one up that? I didn't think Sony's show was that level of strong, to be honest with you. It was very, very good. A ton of games I loved, but Microsoft has some very big games in the works as well. I think they can actually probably match what Sony did, or maybe even go a little bit bigger if they want to announce further off projects. So my overall thought, Bigelow, is Microsoft needs to go very big. They can't come out with a small show. They can't come out and just show Halo and like one or two other first-party games. I think Microsoft needs to commit to a big first-party showing. I think we need to see 4 to 5 big AAA first-party projects from them. Microsoft has a lot of studios now. They went on a shopping spree. They bought a whole bunch of teams. They need to show, I'm not saying, hey, show 10 first-party games so that there's nothing left. You do have to balance, right? You do have to have some stuff waiting in the wings for further shows. But 4 to 5 first-party big games I think Microsoft need to show. And Halo needs to look excellent. Halo needs to look really, really good. Of course, you always want to see new IPs. You want to see, all sorts of things you've never seen before. We've already seen a little bit of Halo Infinite, but not much. Halo traditionally is Microsoft's biggest first-party franchise by far. It's been a legendary franchise for them, but it's also a franchise that currently is like a little bit on the rocks, right? Halo 5 has had kind of a very mixed reception. A lot of people like the multiplayer, but the single player was pretty controversial. Halo 4 kind of the same way, a very mixed reception. Infinite needs to be very good. I think Infinite needs a big showing, not like a 2-minute trailer. Halo Infinite, I think, needs like a 10-minute blowout, and it needs to be very good. That's the one game I have my eye on the most. I'm really excited to see other new announcements as well, but I think in terms of importance, Halo is the most important one, especially since it is a launch game. Microsoft need to show that game extensively, and it needs to look really good. All right, there is a super chat. Let me get to the super chat really quick. I never want to miss a super chat, so I'm going to come up to the rest of your questions, but I want to hit this super chat first. Killian Butler with the super chat. Thank you so much, Killian. Means the world to me. Hey, Benji, hope you had a great vacation. I've been playing The Last of Us 2, and I don't think I've been so emotionally affected by any form of media like this game. Wow, that's exciting to hear, Killian. I can't wait to dive in. I'm going to play a bunch tonight. Like I said, I plan on putting hours into The Last of Us Part 2 tonight, and I've been hearing a lot of people saying stuff like that. Very, very emotional, very heavy story. I can't wait to comment on it. Like I said, next week I'll have a lot to talk to you about. I'll hopefully have it beaten by then. I won't drop spoilers in the live chat, but I can at least give you my spoiler-free impressions next week. But Killian, I'm happy to hear that you're loving it. All right, we have a ton of questions, so I need to start rocking through some of these. Forzathon. I'm sure Square Enix are really happy that Cyberpunk 2077 got delayed. Yes, I would think so. Gives Avengers some room to breathe. Yeah, so I tweeted about this. I could not agree with you more, Forzathon. Whenever I saw that, that was literally probably I wouldn't say my first thought. My first thought was I wasn't surprised. You know, this game is so important for CD Projekt Red. Everyone knows it's important, but I think some people don't realize how important. The market expects that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to sell like a Grand Theft Auto. Now, I don't think that the market thinks that it's going to sell, 100+ million copies lifetime, but what I mean is an explosively massive launch. We're talking shipping tens of millions of units within months. Huge. Expectations are giant. You can see that in CD Projekt Red's share price. It has just skyrocketed in recent years. A huge part of that, of course, is The Witcher 3 selling so well. But they haven't had a new game, like a big new game, in years, right? Witcher 3 legs are good, but the main reason that stock price keeps skyrocketing is everyone investing, expecting Cyberpunk to be enormous. So this game basically has to be darn near perfect for CD Projekt Red when it launches. So I think that's why you're seeing yet another delay. It's been delayed multiple times now, but I wasn't shocked because CD Projekt Red cannot release this game half-baked. It cannot come out and be mediocre. It has to be amazing. So I think they are just polishing it to perfection, or at least as close as they can, right? Because the studio has so much riding on this game. It's been in development for so long. It's an insanely expensive project to make, and like I said, in terms of like sales, the expectations are enormous. Did all that it was delayed. In terms of probably my second thought, though, was indeed Square Enix have got to be doing cartwheels, somersaults, popping bottles of champagne, because this does leave Avengers wide open. Now, who knows? Maybe Avengers gets delayed as well. I don't think it's going to, though. I think they're kind of sticking to this date in early September. You never know. Things could change, but I don't think it's going to get delayed again, especially now. They have early September, which traditionally is actually a pretty big month for the industry. There are a lot of releases that happen in September. The summer's usually kind of slow, and then September is the beginning of that big holiday ramp up. So if they can have, Avengers was scheduled to release only 2 weeks. Oh man, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Sorry everyone if you're hitting buffering. I am getting an error. So sorry. I have a storm rolling in, so it could be affecting my stream. If you're all getting buffering issues, I'm really apologize. I'm really sorry about that. Because as of now, it's giving me a notification that it's not going well. So sorry. It could be this storm kind of affecting stuff. But yeah, good news for Avengers. Very, very good news for Avengers. Tripix, Benji, are you excited about Spider-Man Miles Morales? Absolutely excited. I'm extremely stoked for that game. So, it's hard to say original Spider-Man game, but the last Spider-Man game, the one from Insomniac, I was a massive fan of. I'm a huge comic book fan. I'm sitting here wearing, an X-Men shirt on stream, so I think that kind of tells you a little bit that I love comic books. I love comic book characters. I'm super stoked for this. the sales potential is huge. You know, it has over 11 million views. It was the most popular game at the PlayStation event. So that kind of tells you something. Whenever you had big games like Resident Evil and big games like, you know, which Resident Evil didn't sell anywhere near what Spider-Man did. But you know what I'm saying? You have big stuff like Resident Evil. You have stuff like Horizon Zero Dawn 2. In terms of metrics, you know, Spider-Man was by far and away the most popular game. In fact, it basically doubled the views of Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which is darn impressive because Horizon Zero Dawn is a huge franchise as well. So I'm excited for Miles Morales, and I think it's going to be a huge seller. Costas here. Hey Benji, The Last of Us had sold 17 million by May 2018 and 20 million by October 19. Yeah, when you combine the PS3 and PS4 versions. Since then, it's been selling even better. Do you think it will reach 25 million copies? Costas, it's definitely possible. The Last of Us is one of those games that has really long legs too. It launched big, but it didn't launch crazy huge, so a ton of its sales have just been long legs. 25 million, I'd say, is not impossible, Costas. I think that game's going to keep selling, you know. So, yeah, Costas, I would say, yeah, very likely. Kieran Buckley, here is a good question. This is a good one, Buckley. Do you think the new Spider-Man for PS5 is enough to get Sony through holiday 2020? This is a great question. So we don't really know the full PlayStation 5 launch lineup yet, right? A lot of the games during the PS5 showcase were kind of nebulous in terms of when they're releasing. Some stuff had like no dates attached to them at all, not even years attached to them. Some stuff did, some stuff said launch. You know, it was like kind of a mix. So we don't really know what PlayStation 5 is fully launching with. We know Spider-Man's going to be one of those though. Is it enough? I mean, Spider-Man's huge. Like I said, Miles Morales did double the views of Horizon Zero Dawn 2. So that's pretty crazy. I'm going to say yes. You know, some people might not love that there's not more there at launch, and there could be others too, right? Like I said, we don't know the full launch lineup. But I think with Spider-Man, with now Cyberpunk going to be in that window, with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you know, there's just a lot. There's going to be a lot of third-party games. There's going to be a new Call of Duty. You know what I mean? There's going to be quite a few whenever you add in third-party as well to carry the system. I would say at launch, if they just have Spider-Man for their big AAA exclusive game, I think it would be enough with third-party support as well. Here's what I will say, though, Kieran, is they need another game fairly quickly. I would say they need another big exclusive within 3 to 6 months of that launch time. So I would say it's enough to carry them through 2020, right? Let's say they launch in November, you know, November sales, December sales. I think it's a plenty to help them there. But once we start hitting next spring, once we start hitting like March, April, things like that, they're going to need something else. Yeah, Spider-Man wouldn't be enough by itself, I don't think, long term to carry it. They will need something else there, kind of close. Tripic saying Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is beautiful. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I thought Horizon Zero Dawn 2 was my game of the show. I loved the original, so I'm stoked out of my mind for the sequel. But Ratchet and Clank did the best job, I thought, of showing what is next gen, right? With that crazy portal hopping through different worlds, instant fast loading with the SSD. You know, so many of us have been wondering. You've seen developers hype up the SSD like crazy, right? You've seen tons of people saying SSD is so important, SSD is so important, SSD is so important, but we hadn't like seen it, right? We had just been told it. Ratchet and Clank did an amazing job of being that game that showed us what is new, what is possible that only the SSD can do. So that was very cool. I thought Ratchet and Clank was right up there as one of the best showcases for the show, for showing what sets PlayStation 5 really apart from PS4. All right, here's a fun one, and one I was hoping someone would ask. Costas, sales expectations for the major games revealed at PS event. Okay, let's have some fun with this. So, biggest seller out of these. Ooh. Man, it's tough because Miles Morales isn't a full game. It's a game. It's a standalone game. But they've compared it somewhat to being more like an Uncharted Lost Legacy than Spider-Man 2, right? This is like kind of like an in-between story before we get the next true big huge sequel from Insomniac. But I think it still could be enough. I could easily see Miles Morales not necessarily matching the original Spider-Man's game sales. I don't think it will do that. But definitely I think 10 plus million is a lock. I could see 10 plus million for Spider-Man. Could be even 15 million. Could be, just kind of depends on reception. But with this not being the true sequel, the Spider-Man 2, I don't think it's going to be as big as Spider-Man 2 will be, but it will do really well. So we'll say 10 plus million, possibly even 15 million range. Horizon Zero Dawn 2 also is going to be a 10 plus million seller. It's going to do huge numbers. I would peg it as of now probably just below Spider-Man. I think I'm going to go Spider-Man. I'm just going to rank the first party exclusives, okay? This is a guess. We're still so far out. Things could change. But right now, I think Spider-Man Miles Morales is probably your number one highest selling game that was announced at the PlayStation event. There's a reason Sony basically led with that, right? That was like their first big first-party game that they showed. So I'm going to put Spider-Man right at the top. I'm going to slot in Horizon sequel right under it. I'm going to go Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn 2. Then I think I'm going to go Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7 has had very good YouTube metrics. And again, like I always say, YouTube metrics are not everything. But when you compare it to GT Sport, it's a night and day difference. We're talking like complete difference in terms of reception. So I'm going to go GT7 right beneath that. So I'm going to go Spider-Man, Horizon, Gran Turismo 7. Beneath Gran Turismo 7... It's tough for me between Ratchet and Clank and Demon's Souls, which will be bigger between those two. That is a tough one. I'm going to say Ratchet and Clank and then Demon's Souls. So I think that's how I'm going to rank my top 5. Those are going to be the 5 big first-party games I'm going to rank. There are other ones that were announced there as well. There's a ton of games, but it would take a long time to rank everything. So Spider-Man biggest, then Horizon, then Gran Turismo, then Ratchet and Clank, then Demon's Souls. I know a lot of people that are really hardcore Souls fans are going to be like, how do you put Demon's Souls 5th? But Souls games are big, but they're not as big as these other games. Ratchet, though, is debatable. It'll be interesting to see, but Ratchet's a pretty big franchise, and I think the showcase was so good for that one. I think that's going to perform better than your typical Ratchet and Clank. So those are going to be the top 5 that I'm going to rank right now. Elias saying, prediction, The Last of Us Part 3 will be at the end of the PS5 cycle. You know what's interesting, Elias? I did not know if The Last of Us Part 3 would even really be a thing. And then Neil Druckmann said in an interview that he's undecided if they're going to do The Last of Us Part 3 next or a new IP. So that just tells you that they're actually already even thinking about it. So The Last of Us Part 3 at the end of the PS5 cycle, Elias, I'm going to say you're right. I am going to say it will happen. I don't think that's going to be Naughty Dog's next game. I think they are going to do a new IP first, but I think they are going to do a part 3. And I was undecided if that would be a thing. But if Neil's already thinking about it, if he already has ideas, kind of swimming around in his brain for a third game, The Last of Us is such a huge franchise. I'm going to agree with you, Elias. I'm going to say a new Naughty Dog IP next. And then, part 3 probably at the end of the PS5 cycle. Sounds about right. Forzathon, do you think Cyberpunk 2077 launching alongside next gen will Game Pass an even more viable option to play launch titles on? I've seen this debate. Some people think that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be on Game Pass. I am not going to predict that unless Microsoft gave, we're talking enormous money. Unless Microsoft gave CD Projekt Red over $100 million, way more than $100 million. In fact, way more. I don't know what the number would be, but it'd be a lot of freaking money. It's not going to be on Game Pass because that game will be huge at launch. So Microsoft would have to pay insane cash for that to happen. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft writes that check, but I do not expect that. So, are you saying, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question. Maybe you're saying that maybe like the stuff launching on Game Pass might hurt Cyberpunk 2077. For example, Halo Infinite will be on day one on Game Pass. I don't think so. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is going to do huge numbers, and I also think that Game Pass is going to do huge stuff too. Tripix saying, oh, whoops, I lost the question. Saying, did I see that the Grand Theft Auto 5 trailer got crazy dislikes? I'm not shocked by that, to be honest with you. I did not see that, but I'm not surprised. I had two issues with the Sony show. Only two, really, but I had two problems with the PlayStation 5 event. First was leading with Grand Theft Auto 5. That was really weird. I get it. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a massive game. It's huge. Gigantic. In fact, it's like basically that and Minecraft are basically the two biggest games of all time in terms of sales, right? Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto, and you can kind of throw like Tetris in there too, but it's right near the top of the biggest games of all time. So in one sense, it makes sense to talk about Grand Theft Auto 5 early, but showing a last-gen game right at the beginning of your show was very strange. I would not have done that. I would have had the announcement in there because it was a big announcement that you get Grand Theft Auto Online for free, with PlayStation 5, but I would have snuck that in somewhere else. Leading with it was very strange. Very, very strange choice. Rockstar's a big deal, so I'm guessing that in terms of the marketing, that was probably part of the deal they struck with Rockstar, is that it would be featured prominently right off the bat. But yeah, when you see that Rockstar logo pop up, I freaked. Like, the stream starts, you see Rockstar, I'm like, oh my god, they're going to show something like crazy. Like, this is going to be Grand Theft Auto 6. I did not expect to see it yet, but I guess they're going to announce it. And then all of a sudden you see not even PS5, it was PS4 version of Grand Theft Auto. Strange, very strange choice. And then my second issue with the show was the stream quality just wasn't very good, to be honest. Like, the actual stream itself, not the content of the stream, but the stream quality. It was just pretty low. It didn't look very good. There was a lot of artifacting and compression in it. I hope Xbox's show in July just looks a lot cleaner because you lost a lot of the detail in that PS5 stream. Isma, after another record month, how is the Switch trending in the US so far in June? Isma, I actually have no comment on that, and I'm not probably going to have a lot of comments on June. I've been on vacation. I've been out of the loop. I've been on my phone, kind of, but like, for example, yesterday, I wasn't on my phone for over 24 hours. June, I've been kind of out of the loop on things. I haven't talked to people the way I normally do about gaining info and finding out as much as I can about what's going on in terms of sales. So Isma, I hate to say this. Usually I comment and I'm telling you all the previews of stuff. I have no idea. I have no idea how Switch is going to do in June. Hopefully in July, I'm going to be more, on board again. The Ghost of Carnage. Hello, Benji. Do you think we will be more spin-off games set between each sequel in the Spider-Man trilogy? If the game does well, what's more likely, more Miles spin-offs or Venom Black Cat spin-offs? Great question, Ghost of Carnage. Here's what I'll say. I think I would love to see more games like this in general. For example, I mentioned Uncharted: The Lost Legacy earlier. That is maybe my favorite Uncharted game. It's right near the top. It's probably in my top 2. I haven't replayed Uncharted 4 in a very long time. I actually haven't played that game since close to launch of that game. So it's been a very long time. I'd have to replay Uncharted 4. I know I liked Lost Legacy better than Uncharted 2, which I love. I would probably put Uncharted 2 as number 3, Lost Legacy above that, and Uncharted 4. Those two are kind of interchangeable for me. I'd have to replay 4. But I'd love to see more of these smaller, focused, not maybe $60. We don't know the price of Miles Morales. Maybe it's going to be $40. Hard to say. But I would like to see more of that in general, whether it's Spider-Man spinoffs, whether it's Uncharted spinoffs, whether it's Halo spinoffs, whatever. I like this idea of these smaller, more focused projects in between the big giant games. I'd love to see it, Ghost of Carnage. So for Spider-Man, I'd love to see it, and I'd love to see it with a lot of other franchises as well. Moist and Delicious. Benji, do you think a Switch Pro will be released? I think another Switch revision will be released at some point. Whether that will be a Pro, That I'm a little bit more divided on. You know, I'm not sure if it's going to be a Pro or not. But there will be some sort of remodel. So whether that's like a better screen, we're talking about Nintendo here, right? You know, the company that released a million different 3DSs and DSs. If you look at, you know, there was the regular DS, and there was the DS Lite, and there was the DS XL, and there was the DSi, and, you know, 3DS, you had the new 3DS and 3DS XL. You get what I'm going with. Nintendo really likes to release revisions of their consoles to help boost sales. So yeah, I definitely expect another revision. Right now we only have the Switch and the Switch Lite. There was a new Switch, but it's basically the same thing, just with a little bit better battery. So I'm not really counting that as a re-release. It's mostly the same thing with just a slightly better battery, and they didn't advertise it as something new, right? It was just whatever. It got a different box, and it's just the standard Switch. So I do expect something moist and delicious. I just don't know if it's going to be a Pro, how some people think of it. I think a lot of people are expecting a really powerful, much, much better one. I would love that. I would love it. Some games are a little rough on handheld. I'm playing through Xenoblade Chronicles right now. I love it. It's so good. But yeah, it's pretty rough handheld. Some of the resolution is just very clearly low. I would be on board. I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that or not. Split End 89 here with a pretty hilarious comment. Shout out as always to Split End 89 for being an amazing chat mod. You are the best, Split End. And he says, is there any chance with the beach visit we will get the 2021 Benji swimsuit calendar by holiday? Unfortunately, Split End, no. I don't think anybody wants to see a Benji swimsuit calendar. The beach was awesome. Totally loved it, enjoyed it. But don't worry, I won't burn your eyeballs with a swimsuit calendar. All right. Couch. Sony just confirmed performance of up to 120 FPS and 120 hertz on their site. Interesting. I think you probably will see some indie games and stuff hit that frame rate. I think Gran Turismo actually might even have a 120 FPS option. I think it's very, very possible Gran Turismo 7 has an option like that, you know, maybe with no ray tracing and a lower resolution, you know, kind of like what Dirt's doing. The upcoming Dirt game has a 120 FPS option. I could see Gran Turismo doing the same thing. Disable ray tracing, lower that resolution down. I would say don't expect 120 FPS in very many games. I think it'll be kind of a rare thing. But indie games that aren't pushing like the bleeding edge envelope of visuals, or, you know, like I said, like specific racing modes, or maybe even fighting games, which people like to be ultra responsive. I wouldn't be shocked if you see a fighting game that runs at 1080p at 120 FPS as an option. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think you will see it rarely on PlayStation and Xbox because the CPU jump is enormous, right? It was the CPUs in last gen were just not good. So that is going to really limit how many games can hit 120 FPS. We got a huge jump in CPU this gen. So I think it's going to be rare. Don't think you're going to see a ton of 120 FPS games, but you'll see a few. Definitely, I think you'll see some. We already have one confirmed, right? Dirt 5. So there will be more. Ooh, Thai Chef. Can anyone confirm PS5 day one launch in India? Or do we have to suffer like every gen and wait 3 months more? I'm not sure, Thai Chef. I have not seen that info. I apologize. I don't have any info on that. Maybe somebody else does, but I'm not sure when the India launch will be. We're at 48 minutes. I like to keep the stream at about an hour, so we'll go for like another 10 minutes. I'm going to still hit as many questions as I can. Thanks everyone who jumped into chat. As always, thanks for everyone who's jumped in the stream. I love doing these so much. Thanks for the great questions. And yeah, we'll knock out like another 10, 15 minutes or so. Forzathon. I'm seeing all the insane hype surrounding Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it's unreal. And I really do think that Xbox need their own superhero game next gen. Yeah, superhero is a giant genre, right? Huge. I think it would be nice, you know, honestly. I think Xbox absolutely should do that. If you look at how big Spider-Man's done for Sony, I mean, we're talking that has moved insane numbers of consoles. It's also moved an insane number of units. And yes, Xbox is going to get like, you know, multi-platforms ones like Avengers, But I agree with you, Forzathon. I think Microsoft should go aggressive in pursuing an exclusive superhero game because it is such a big thing. Look at the hype for Batman, and we haven't even seen it yet, right? Online, and people are frustrated too because we still haven't seen it. But you know what I mean? Like the next Batman Arkham game that we know exists that we haven't seen anything of. So many people are excited for that. Spider-Man's doing huge numbers. I think it would be smart. Whether they will or not, I'm going to say no. But that could happen. Could happen, and I think they should. And then Split End saying they called the Grand Theft Auto Online for free in a previous chat. Yeah, I think you did, Split End. Actually, I think I recall that as well. You nailed it. Great job. Silence PP7, what are your expectations for the WB event? I'm hoping for gameplay from WB Games Montreal, Batman, and Rocksteady. Suicide Squad ? And Split End following that up saying, who buys WB games? Yeah, this is interesting, right? So 2 parts here. First, let's talk about the rumor. And it's from CNBC. So, I mean, I think that's who reported it. It's a very legitimate source. Says that WB Games is up for sale. They have their studios up for sale. They're trying to find someone to buy those studios. And there's a whole bunch of questions about, is this going to include licensing rights? Is it only for the studios, but you don't get any rights to, say, making Batman games or, you know, Harry Potter games or things like this? Who knows? So this is a crazy quagmire. There's only a few companies that can really afford that kind of thing. You're going to be looking at the biggest publishers, right? You're going to be looking at EA. You're going to be looking at, you know, Take-Two, Activision, Microsoft. I don't think Sony's in the running, I'll be honest with you. I just don't think so. I don't think Sony's going to drop the kind of money they're asking for. Could happen. PlayStation's a huge brand. I don't think Sony's going to bite, though. So there's only a few players out there. Maybe Epic Games you could see maybe making a purchase like this. Or you could even go over to some of the like Chinese companies. You know, maybe you have, you know, one of those big giant Chinese companies buying one of these, but you get what I'm saying. It's a small group, right? We're not talking, you know, everyone can buy this. It's the very, 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 very biggest publishers. I wouldn't buy those studios without licensing rights. I just wouldn't, unless you got a crazy good deal, right? Because all of those studios, mostly, even the good ones like Rocksteady, who have an amazing track record with Batman, it's with Batman. You know, you don't really know how Rocksteady are going to do with their own IP. You don't really know how WB Games Montreal is going to be with their own IP. Maybe Rocksteady makes their own IP and it's better than Batman. Could be. You don't know. But it is a risk, right? And it's not going to be a cheap buy. So I would say IP licensing at least needs to be included if I'm buying one of these studios, or unless you get a very good deal. That's the way I would do it. Unless they split them up, if you can individually snag a team, if you could just buy Rocksteady and you think you're going to get a good deal on it, okay. But it sounds like the deal is to buy all of it. It sounds like it's all grouped together. You're getting Rocksteady, you're getting WB Montreal, you're getting NetherRealm, the whole bunch together. If it's a deal like that, I want licensing rights, whether that's for 5 years, whether that's for 10 years. Obviously, you're not going to get permanent rights. There's no way, you know, that they're going to do that, but at some form of licensing deal. And in terms of what I would expect, yeah, big. That was the rumor that was floating around. Jason Schreier talked about that they were going to go big. You were going to see Rocksteady. You were going to see WB Games Montreal. You were going to see the Harry Potter game that is being developed by Avalanche. There was a bunch. So when it happens, I think kind of depends on the sale. This sale could be going through soon. It sounds like there was already companies approaching them interested in the purchase. So it could be you have to wait on the event until the sale happens. Attack of the Souls X. The Last of Us 2 sales expectations. I think Europe is going to be a bigger launch than Spider-Man. I'm kind of out of the loop on the US a little bit, but I think the US actually might not be as big of a launch as Spider-Man. Could be, though. I think it is going to overall beat Spider-Man's 3.3 million in 3 days. I'm still not convinced it's going to do 4 million plus in 3 days because I think that the US isn't going to be that much bigger than Spider-Man if it is. but Europe could be quite a bit bigger. So Attack of the Souls X launch, I'm going to say above 3.3 million, below 4 million. That's going to be the range I give, but that's just an estimate and a guess. More people asking about The Last of Us launch sales. Forzathon saying that they think Xbox or Take-Two are perfect for WB. Yeah, I would say them or EA. Activision maybe, but I'm not going to say Activision. I think Xbox, Take-Two, or EA in terms of who I think is probably most likely. Those are the three I think are the most likely. How wild would it be if Xbox got them after how many studios they bought? Maybe Xbox has spent a lot of money. You know, they might not be in a rush to buy another gigantic purchase. They've spent a lot of money, so maybe not Xbox. Costas, do you think games like God of War 5 and Horizon Zero Dawn 2 are going to be boosted in sales due to the sequels? Yes, I expect both of those to perform better than the last ones. So Horizon Zero Dawn 2 to sell better than Horizon Zero Dawn, and yes, the next God of War to sell better than the last God of War. I think the ones that could be hurt would be the entries after that if those games aren't as good as their predecessors. So, yes, for now, I think both those games are going to be bigger. Forzathon, do you think Xbox's price reveal will be alongside the Lockhart reveal? Yes, I think that will happen at the exact same time. Because if they're going to announce Lockhart, they have to give you the reason why you would want Lockhart, right? Because Lockhart is weaker. It's not exactly the same case as when Sony announced the digital-only PlayStation 5 and the disc PS5. In terms of like graphics, visuals, they're the exact same thing. Just one, you can't put a physical disc in. In terms of Lockhart, it's a completely different platform. It does have weaker visuals. It has a lower GPU, teraflop number. It sounds like maybe a little less RAM. So something like that, if you're going to announce something that actually plays games differently, you need to give a reason why someone would buy that instead of the Series X. So yes, when Lockhart gets revealed, I think the price gets revealed at the exact same time, same event, same show, whatever. Silence PP7. What is next for Vicarious Visions since it's been leaked that Toys for Bob is developing Crash Bandicoot 4? Good question. There is going to be a new Spyro game. Activision have basically confirmed that without saying it. I don't know if Vicarious Visions are the one doing it. I have no idea. But someone's going to make a new Spider-Man game, Spyro game. So maybe it's them. Activision essentially said that without giving the name. Same thing with Crash Bandicoot. They said that some of their beloved IP were going to see new entries that weren't like Call of Duty and stuff. Some of their dormant IP. They're talking about Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. Both of those remasters did excellent for Activision. So could be Vicarious Vision is doing the next Spyro game. I don't know that. But I mean, that's possible if Toys for Bob's doing Crash Bandicoot. Maybe they're taking a stab at Spyro. Dave G, have you heard the rumors that Lockhart is going to be half the price of Series X? Do you believe it? And do you think it's feasible? So I have heard that rumor, Dave, and the rumor sounds kind of crazy just because of the price points. The price points that were part of that rumor were that Series X was going to be $400 and that Lockhart was going to be $200. That seems awfully low for both. If that is true, Microsoft is definitely taking a loss on those consoles. Microsoft has the money. They theoretically can take a loss if they want to, if they think they can get back a lot of money through stuff like Game Pass, for example. Maybe they're thinking, hey, we're going to sell these consoles at a loss, but we're going to get a ton of new Game Pass subscribers. So that's going to be kind of the balancing act. I don't buy those numbers. I hope it's true. A $400 Series X or a $200 Lockhart, that would be amazing. But my expectation would be more like a $500 Series X and a $300 Lockhart. I think that's possible, actually. When you're talking about the GPU is half, that's the rumor, right? The rumor is that it is actually not even half, right? It's actually lower than half. I think the rumor is that Lockhart's 4 teraflops while Series X is 11. So it's a lot weaker GPU. So actually, in that case, I don't even know if I have my numbers right. Sorry, I'm kind of frazzled on that of the specs. But you know what I'm getting at. It sounds like Lockhart could be theoretically a lot cheaper, yes. I just don't know that I buy the $400 and $200 number. I think $500 and $300 is more likely. YTL MDG, do you think game streaming will be an alternative way of playing or take over the industry? I definitely don't think it's going to take over the industry, not in any way. I think it's going to be a big part of the industry and a growing part of the industry, especially for emerging markets and places that, you know, maybe you don't have the kind of money to go out and buy, you know, a $500 machine, but you do have pretty good internet where you live. A lot of emerging markets actually have pretty stable and good internet connections. I think you will see it grow. It's going to be a big part of the industry, but it ain't going to take over the industry, no. At least not for a long time. Maybe in like 30, 40 years, we're talking, it could take over eventually if it becomes like, I mean, latency is literally imperceptible and you could run things at insanely high graphics. Maybe at some point it could become like a full takeover where consoles are pretty rare, but I do not expect that anytime in the next 10, 15 years, nothing like that. More that streaming will just grow, become big, become important, but not take over consoles sales to where it's like no one's going out and buying a Series X or anything like that. I would not expect that for a very long time. All right, we're right at an hour. I'm just going to get a couple more questions, and then we're going to bounce out. Wow, I missed some Super Chats. Whoa, so let me hit those Super Chats. We're definitely not leaving before I get to Super Chats. Sorry, did not realize there was a couple here. So first, we've got one from Jerry. Thank you so much for the Super Chat. Saying, do you think a Mass Effect reboot is really a thing? Yes, because that's coming from Jeff Grubb, and Jeff Grubb has been just spot on the money with his reporting. I mean, spot on. If you don't follow Jeff Grubb, over on Twitter and VentureBeat. He's been doing some amazing reporting this summer. So, yes, he's saying Mass Effect reboot is real. At this point, I just trust anything Grubb says because he's been spot on the money. So, yeah, Mass Effect... Wait. I think I'm misreading. You're saying the reboot, not the remaster. The remaster is definitely real. The reboot is a good question because I think this actually comes from Jason Schreier, so from somebody else. Jason's also extremely reliable. He reported a while back that, yes, there was a new Mass Effect project that doesn't sound like it was a remaster, like a new Mass Effect game that was starting very early pre-production. Jerry, I think so. I think it's real. Mass Effect is a very important franchise for EA. There's not a lot of games out there like Mass Effect. Yes, Andromeda was pretty rough, but I don't think they want to completely abandon Mass Effect. Especially, let's say, if this remaster that is definitely coming out does really well. If the Mass Effect remaster does really, really well, which I think it will, yeah, I'm going to say the Mass Effect reboot is real. You probably just won't see it for a long time because Dragon Age is next for BioWare, right? Their next big AAA game is Dragon Age 4. So Mass Effect's probably really early pre-production. You probably won't see that for quite a long time. And then Timmer72299 asking my thoughts on AT&T selling WB Games. Thank you for the super chat. I answered that earlier, so sorry I didn't answer your question directly with the super chat. I just now saw the super chat, but thank you so much for the super chat. And yeah, we have still a ton of questions. Man, it's a bummer that I can't get to all of these. Let me grab one or two more questions and we'll bounce out. Let me go to the bottom. I'm gonna grab a few from the bottom because I don't want to just get people from the top. All right, Danger Man saying they asked about EA Play. Let me get to your EA Play question, Danger Man, because we haven't gone over that at all. Hi, Benji. About EA Play, it does look like EA's decisions over the last decade or so of shutting down studios and consolidating teams or reorganizing in general has taken its toll. didn't show much. Like Battlefield, for example, there was rumors of DICE LA doing a Bad Company 3, Bad Company Remastered, but now they're not doing that, and DICE in general is being overloaded in the last few years. Yeah, so basically a lot of questions here from Danger Man about EA's closing studios and things like that. Yes, Danger Man, I do think you're kind of seeing that. I've felt, and I hate to say this, I like to be a positive guy, but I feel like EA was not run very well this generation, to be honest with you. A lot of investors will tell you differently because EA posted tons of profit from things like, microtransactions and things like this. They're a very profitable company. But when I'm looking at success, I'm looking at, did you maximize what you could have done? Not just, are you big? Are you making a lot of money? When I'm looking at it, I'm saying, could you have done more? Could you have done better? And EA is a company I look at this generation that I absolutely feel that way. I feel like EA in general, when you look at the gen, their output was just way too low in general outside of sports games. If you take out all of EA's sports games, if you look at just non-sports EA titles, their release slate is very low, very, very low. So they did not release enough games this gen. You are kind of seeing that right now, like you're saying. They are announcing some stuff, but it's in a very nebulous way, very far out, stuff like Skate, stuff like that BioWare tease, things like that. They're just very rough kind of things. So yeah, I feel like they needed to have, they're not a company I feel like that maximize their potential this generation. And part of it is, yes, like you mentioned, closing studios. They haven't had enough teams to work on things. Their output is too low, not varied enough. There's quality questions with stuff like Anthem. So yeah, Danger Man, to answer your question in general, yes, I think you are correct that EA just frankly aren't in the best spot. So hopefully that changes. They have commented in their investor reports and things that they are planning on increasing the amount of games they have releasing. So I think that will improve in the future. You've seen that Respawn has done really, really well for them. Respawn has actually kind of become like the golden goose over at EA when you look at how amazing Apex Legends has performed for them, how amazing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has done for them. Now you have Vince Zampella overseeing DICE LA, and that's going to get rebranded. So Danger Man, I think things very well could improve for EA. But yeah, I think that this gen was pretty rough for them, honestly. Outside of things like sports titles, you look at like the Ultimate Team and FIFA and Madden. Yes, those generate a ton of money, but they could have done more. All right, everyone, I'm going to call the chat there. Sorry to anyone whose questions I didn't get to, but we have been streaming for over an hour now, and I like to keep the streams at a concise hour. So thanks, everyone. If you have questions I didn't get to, we're going to do another live chat next week. There's no vacation or anything for me next week, so we'll definitely be doing at least one, probably 2 streams next week. So bring those questions and comments then. Thanks, everyone. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, and I will see you all in the next stream. Thanks so much, everyone, and I will see you next time.